Greetings, my name is Shimei, and this is the State of the Campaign for October 6, 2013. I'll be talking over footage of the final game today between Cody, Arlen, and Caleb. It's going to go on for quite some time, but I have quite a bit to talk about. I was testing out the camera today, so currently it's just on the tripod recording. There's a few clips in there mixed in where I took some other footage while I was holding it. I actually think that it would be quite possible to play a full game just with me holding the thing, so I think I might try that next week. I'd only be able to do one game like that. The battery life wouldn't last me longer than that, but I'd like to see how that goes, so I'll be trying that out next week. So I'd like to introduce you guys to the mildly acceptable campaign. Currently we have 5 active players. We've got Joe with his Orcs and Goblin army, Cody with his Chaos Warriors, Arlen with his Lizardmen, Caleb with his High Elves, and myself with Undead. Now, it's an escalation campaign. This week it was 1,200 points. It goes up 100 every week. The plan is to have a tournament-style game at the end of every month. It'd be like a round-robin style. Wouldn't have any of the special rules from the campaign, just standard Warhammer. So the guys don't get too used to having some incredibly powerful characters because of their territories and other bonuses they've received from events in the campaign. This campaign has been running since the start of the summer. It was originally a warband campaign where we started at 250 points and we only went up 50 points every week. So it's been going on for quite some time, and it looks like it'll be continuing. The rules for the campaign have changed significantly since we first started. They are quite extensive, and I do intend to create a video outlining them a little bit. The thing about the campaign that we're currently running is that the rules change so much that it'd be hard to just straight nail them down. We try something new every week and see whether we like it or not, and in that way the campaign has evolved, and we're going to be taking a lot of the lessons that we learned from this campaign into our next one, which will have a significantly more set rule set, something that will not change as much, and we can play within and around without having to worry about mechanics changing at a whim. But currently the campaign does have a map, which I intend to get fully onto the computer. It's currently only in physical form, but I'm working on translating it to the computer, and I'll try to attach it to our website so the guys can see it, and I'll update it as the campaign changes. It's really it's a learning experience, the entire campaign, for everybody involved. We have many people that are entirely new to Warhammer, and myself, I'm completely new to running a campaign of any kind, but especially one this long or extensive with these kinds of rules. So it's a learning experience for me, absolutely, and for the guys. Eventually the goal at the end of the campaign will stop escalating at 2,500 points, which is a rather standard level for, or standard points value for competitive gameplay. So we'll stop escalating at that point, and we'll conclude the campaign with a month of fighting at 2,500 for supremacy over the islands that we're currently fighting over. And there'll be a lot of tournament gameplay in there as well, so that when we get to that 2,500 points, our monthly tournaments will be at 2,500, so the guys can get some practice in for any tournaments that come up, whether they be Godicon or any kind of games day or larger event. Attack X happened just a few weeks ago in Kamloops, which is our home city, and I attended that. The other guys didn't feel that they were quite ready for it or didn't have the points assembled in order to enter that, but I had a lot of fun there, and I'm looking forward to it next year. Hopefully it will be around. I would absolutely go to that. A little bit about my history with Warhammer is I began playing when I was 9. I lived in Vancouver for most of my life, and they have a Games Workshop there, right next to a Toys R Us. So I would go there when I was going to see, whenever my parents would take me to the mall to go see toys, I would always pass by a Games Workshop window, and it was excellent marketing on their side, because there's nothing more attractive than that display case to a child. It's just absolutely amazing that these fully assembled and painted toy soldiers, you could actually play with them and have them kill other toy soldiers with a rule set and rolling dice and stuff like that. They would give you demo games to get you the basic rules for the game, whether that be 40k or fantasy. They would always have some sort of demo game there that they would gladly run you through, even if you were a kid like me, just to get you an idea of what it was like. And those, I must have, every single time I went to that Toys R Us, I would go play a demo game. I must have played 20 or 25 demo games as a kid, until eventually my parents one day for my birthday got me some of my own models, and I started from there. I played in Vancouver until I was 16, and then we moved up to Kamloops, which is where I currently reside. It's in the interior of BC, and it is significantly more rural, a lot smaller community, and so I figured I wouldn't be able to find anybody new in order to play Warhammer. I heard that the actual scene here was significantly smaller than I was used to, and so I accepted that I wouldn't really be able to get any more games of Warhammer, and the hobby kind of dropped off for me at that point. Though I always kept Warhammer, I kept up with Warhammer lore and to some extent the rules as well. I at least kept an ear out for major changes and gameplay and armies and stuff like that. I was still very much interested in the game. I just never really had a way of playing it with anybody. I would still make my decisions about what I wanted to play based off of what I thought they could relate to in Warhammer. Everything from like Neverwinter Nights, I would make characters that I would want to play in Warhammer in other games, especially after Warhammer Online came out. I played a lot of Warhammer Online, and I was very much dedicated to that. I was looking forward to that so much when it was in production and coming out, and they canceled it the first time that they were trying to produce it, and eventually another team picked it up, which was Mythic, the guys that made Dark Age of Camelot, and they did eventually produce the MMO that many people have played today. And I absolutely love that MMO. I played it a lot, and I can't deny that it was a bad game, but it was set in the Warhammer world, so there was nothing better for me. And I absolutely loved my Warrior Priest in that game. I had a lot of characters, but my Warrior Priest was my favorite. And I had never really been all that big of a fan of Empire, because there were so many different races in Warhammer that are so interesting. I used to play elves, undead, and orcs, but after playing Warhammer Online, I really loved that Warrior Priest, and eventually I just couldn't resist the temptation, and I had to play the game again, even though I knew the community here was really small. I just decided to accept the fact that I wouldn't get a game for a month or 2 months and just collect models regardless. Even if nobody was going to play with me, I still wanted to get the models and assemble them and paint them. And even though the actual playing of the game is significantly more entertaining for me than painting or assembling, I still wanted to somehow be a part of that. And so I got back into it, and I absolutely started playing Empire because I wanted a Warrior Priest army. I just wanted it to be themed around Sigmar and people whose religion is hitting people in the face with hammers. I've always liked that idea. And so I collected an army and painted it and assembled it within like a month or two, and then I would get the single games every month or every 2 months, and I would still like I'd show up every every month. They would have an event at my local hobby store for a Warhammer tournament, and some months I'd show up and nobody would be there. Sometimes I'd show up and there'd actually be a few people there, and I'd show up every time just because I absolutely couldn't not play Warhammer. There's while I was playing and collecting Warhammer, I'm very vocal about it. I talk about it a lot, and with a lot of my coworkers and my friends. And some of my friends actually showed some interest in playing the game. The thing about Warhammer, though, is it has such a high entry fee, pretty much. Like there's a huge barrier to entry with the very complex rules. It's not a cheap game whatsoever. There's a lot of effort and time you have to put into it, and it turns off a lot of people. But a lot of other people recognize just like the value of the lore and the character that is in that world. And so I had some friends that really did want to play it, but there's no way they could just straight out buy like a 2,500 point army or something significantly large so they could play in these monthly events. And so one of my acquaintances at this monthly event suggested that I create a warband campaign, something very small scale, along the lines of 250 points, which along Warhammer lines is about 1/10 of a full army, and it's got its own special rules just so you can field something that small, but it doesn't require very much at all in the way of a monetary commitment, and it's something that micro scales the game so much that you can really take your time to explain rules, and it's such a microcosm that the games are very short, and so you can play multiple games and get more familiar with the games quickly. And so I absolutely love that idea, and so did a lot of my friends, because it was a way for them to get into the game without having to spend thousands of dollars upon an army. And so we started playing weekly these very small games, and they would increase gradually, just so that I could get the guys adjusted to the slow increase of power, and give them motivation to build and assemble eventually an entire army. And so we started at 250 points, and we increased the points by 50 each week. Once we got to 500 points, we started using the standard force organization for 8th edition. So that's 25% of your force could be lords, or 25% heroes, etc. Before that, Warband had its own special rules where you could take units of like 2 or 3, just so that certain armies could actually take units without having to meet the minimum core requirements. But after we started with the regular force organization, it continued to go up 50 points per week until we got to 1,000 points. And that happened very recently. And once we had agreed, once we got to 1,000 points, we'd start increasing the ante by increasing the scale by 100 for each week, which by this time the guys were really behind. They were impatient to continue in adding. They're impatient for their army to continue to grow, because it was such a slow burn at 50 points that they couldn't continuously add the stuff that they really wanted to add every week. But with 100 points now, we're at 1,200 points for this week, so next week it'll be 1,300 points. Within 2 months or so, we'll be at the 2,500 point level, and it's entirely feasible for these guys' collections now to be at the 2,500 point level, and we'll be able to play in those monthly events that we ourselves could set up if we desire. And so it's a very exciting prospect for me, and that's what this campaign really stemmed from. But with the next campaign, it's going to be a bit of a different animal, since we'll be playing with armies that we already have established. We can not have to worry about starting so small scale and work from a larger base or larger pool of models as well as armies. And so while there are some people that will be starting new armies for the next campaign, such as myself, I'll always love a chance to start a new army. And that's what I did for the escalation campaign as well. I started a whole new army. It's going to be interesting. I actually started 2 new armies, and I'm going to start 2 new armies for the next campaign as well. I always have a house army that I make so that if anybody wants to join or is intrigued about the game, they can play my army for however long they want to. Even if they never decide to get an army, they can always play mine if they're interested in the game. Just because I love to play Warhammer with people, and it doesn't matter to me whether you're playing with a borrowed army or your own models or what have you. If you want to play the game, I want to play with you, pretty much. And so I'm really just looking forward to the future prospects. Say the campaign, especially for the second campaign, will be an actual update for the guys about what's currently happening in the campaign. It's the stuff that's happening in the current campaign is not too terribly relevant, because it'll mostly come down to tournament style stuff with all the bonuses that they've earned for themselves in that last month. To decide who eventually emerges the winner for this initial campaign. But there are some interesting things that you can carry over to the other campaign, and I'd like to get into what we actually did this week. This week we had all 5 players here, which it's been a while since we've had all 5, just because everybody's schedule's been so busy with the amount of overtime that we've been doing, and with Attack X a few weekends ago, and with my surgeries and everything. But we did have everybody here. It was a good weekend for us. We had the first battle was between myself and Caleb, who was playing High Elves, so it's Undead versus High Elves on one table, and Joe with his Orcs, Cody with his Chaos Warriors, and Arlen with his Lizardmen on the other table. And I had mentioned that we created some event and battle cards for the campaign. And so we drew some to see what exactly was going to be special about these scenarios. And for the for our battle, for Caleb and myself's battle, we actually got 2. One of them was called Jump Around, which is a neutral force of giants are throwing a party in the center of the battlefield when you arrive, and they don't take kindly to the intrusion, and they're a bit hungry, so they'll start attacking whatever's closest to them. And if you can capture their ale, you can actually gain a bonus for your army in the campaign. So we had an equal force of giants to one of our armies, so that was 6 giants. We had to proxy in quite a few of them. You'll see a few of the pictures that I have in this actual feed of a bunch of proxied giants. And we also had, in that same battle, Soldiers of the Wasteland, which is a mercenary force arrives that's larger than both forces, essentially to defeat both forces and take their stuff. And they have a pay chest in their main unit that you can take for resources. So that was the scenario that Caleb and I rolled up, and then the one that the other guys rolled up was Sympathy for the Devil. Which is essentially an anti-shooting scenario that it didn't play too much of an effect. We then played another battle, myself winning the scenario before, and Arlen halting the progress of the Orcs and Chaos with his Lizardmen in that first battle. In the second battle, it was Arlen, Caleb, and Cody, which you can see up on the screen. With Cody being the winner there eventually, gathering resources. There's a bit of controversy about some of the movement decisions in that game, but I wasn't there to supervise, so I won't know about that for sure. And Joe and myself played Orcs versus Undead with a neutral force defending supply carts in the center of the battlefield, which they were protected by humans, which eventually just fled and were murdered terribly. The undead emerged victorious there against the orcs, and it was a fun weekend. I don't have much time remaining, so I'll just log off and say thanks for watching, if you did watch to this end, and I will be getting better footage and more of it next week, and more updates with the map and less of my ramblings. So thanks for watching, and have a good night.